Penn State fans, welcome into the Blue White Breakdown. I'm Max Ralph, joined alongside Johnny McGonigal, and you might notice I'm in a little bit of a different background, having just another layer in the apartment troubles of the fall here for me. They cut out my power for the day randomly, so I'm out in public. If you hear some noise or if I lose connection, that's why. But we're doing everything we can to get you a Thanksgiving episode here on Penn Live in the Blue White Breakdown. Johnny, we fight through it all. Apologies that we're not going live on Thanksgiving Day, but we have this recorded version for you that is going on here. We're recording on a Wednesday. You'll probably get to hear it on Thanksgiving, so hope everybody enjoys the holiday. And Johnny, how we feeling? We got a bowl eligibility matchup this weekend.
We do, Max. I'm doing better than you, I think, in terms of the Wi-Fi situation. I'm not sitting downtown at Irving's in State College recording a podcast.
Right.
And so yeah, if there's any background noise, that's for once the Wi-Fi issues and everything are not on me, because if anyone who has been listening or watching us for a while knows that I had some Wi-Fi troubles earlier in the season. That feels like moons ago. That was when James Franklin was still coaching this team. That's when this team had national title aspirations. The Wi-Fi blames have shifted. As Penn State's season, obviously kind of went in the can, and then now they're burgeoning a little bit here, Max. They're trying to make something of it. Back-to-back wins over Michigan State and Nebraska, putting them at 5-6, one win away against Rutgers, who's also 5-6, for the right to go to a bowl game. And yeah, intrigued to see how it plays out on Saturday in Piscataway. You, Bob, and Joe will be there for that. I've got a family wedding, but I will be intently. I'll be that person at the wedding where you have your phone under the table while the maid of honor is giving the speech. Kind of deal. So that'll be me on Saturday.
Yeah, absolutely love it. You got to do what you got to do. I mean, you're dialed in, so it's what's got to happen. But it's an interesting matchup, I think. Both teams are going for their sixth win, and Penn State is surging at the right time. Rutgers is not, and there's every indication from Terry Smith that his team, if they win, will play in a bowl game, which leads us to some potential interesting matchups. I rallied up some bowl projections this morning. You can go check out on Penn Live. It's looking like a lot of people like Penn State in the Pinstripe Bowl against Pitt, which would be quite a matchup there. But you never know. The Penn State brand is always going to get a little bit of a better bowl game than you think, because TV people are going to want to watch. A handful of people travel. You fans, you always show out. So bowl games like that. But Johnny, let's talk before we get into our predictions for this weekend. We're going to have a little bit of a condensed episode here today. But before we get into our predictions, I just want to talk about the scene that we saw on Saturday in Beaver Stadium with the backing for Terry Smith as potential head coach for Penn State moving forward. This coaching search has just gone on so many different trajectories throughout the 6 weeks that we've been here. Different names have been at the top of the list. A bunch of guys have signed extensions that take themselves out of the running. And then Terry Smith was never really a realistic candidate until he wins these 2 games, and everybody and their mother inside of Beaver Stadium is chanting Terry, Terry, and the players are actively campaigning for him to be here, and it shouldn't really be that surprising. This tends to happen with an interim head coach. The players back him. If he wins some games, it turns into a big discussion. I think Terry he got his interview this week, or he was supposed to get an interview this week officially, but it might be an awkward situation, which is what you wrote in a column this week, and I want to let you dive into that opinion right now.
Yeah, it's a bit of an awkward situation because Terry Smith has made it one by winning. First of all, I think if he didn't pick up a single win, if the scene wasn't the scene on Saturday night, it's senior night, it's Katron Allen breaking the all-time record. All of that was overshadowed by the post game vibes, the post game emotions, the Terry chants, the players holding up signs that seemingly passed out by a fan, at Beaver Stadium because they didn't make them, but they somehow made their way onto the sideline of Beaver Stadium, and signs that read "Hire Terry Smith." You had Anthony Donko getting in front of the NBC cameras and saying, hire this man immediately. He deserves it. And so kind of for a program that under James Franklin was always so buttoned up, things kind of broke contain there, late on Saturday night. And from that point on, there was a portion of the fan base that really like latched onto this. And there are some people who I was surprised by that, I think over the years I've been like, okay, this is, people who have like measured takes who are on board with Terry Smith, but a lot of it, at least from a media standpoint, some of the people who have been on the Terry Smith bandwagon have not been surprised by being prisoners of the moment a little bit. And that's kind of how I framed it in the column, was like, look, we're a few days removed now from Saturday night. We're removed, we as like a collective of people, whether it's media, fans, whatever, who follow this team closely, removed from the emotion and the scene. And we have to look at this rationally. We have to look at this logically. And logically, Pat Kraft did not fire James Franklin to hire his top assistant. He didn't, fire Franklin for not elevating the program to then elevate someone who's already in the building. And I don't mean this to be reductive towards Terry Smith, but he didn't fire James Franklin to hire the guy down the hall. He fired James Franklin due to the collapse and maybe not losing the locker room, but at least, losing a season that so much was built into. And he went at it with the intent, starting this coaching search all the way back in October, to identify a head coach who can elevate this program to a national title contender. And I obviously, like, there's some angst amongst the fan base. And I think that's where a lot of this comes in, where that candidate list is tightening, right? Matt Rule, who was on the opposite sideline on Saturday night, signed a contract extension. Mike Elko signed a contract extension. Seemingly, minutes after this Penn State opening came up, Kurt Signetti from Indiana signed a contract extension. Those guys off the board. You've got Marcus Freeman and Kalen DeBoer as these dream candidates. Well, I mean, Marcus Freeman is probably not going to come to Penn State. They're going to keep trying. Like, they're going to keep trying on, swinging big, they being really just Pat Kraft. But Marcus Freeman, unless it's Ohio State or the NFL, probably isn't leaving Notre Dame. And unless Alabama loses the Iron Bowl to Auburn, or if they win and make the SEC title game and get blown out and at 10-3 get left out of the playoff, Kalen DeBoer is probably not leaving Tuscaloosa. So then where does that leave you? Okay, Brent Key is in the mix. Eli Drinkowitz is in the mix. Bob Chesney is gaining steam. And I think a handful of people in the fan base is like, well, that doesn't really scratch the itch. I would rather have Terry. But I just caution those people because it's been two wins. It's been a a nice little run. Like, and I don't mean to take away anything from that, but this is not something you stake the future of your program on, on a assistant coach who, while is a damn good recruiter and a good motivator and all of that. You don't stake the future of your program on a guy based on, the emotions of a senior night win or him wearing a pin, honestly, because that's a part of this too. The 409 and Joe Paterno pin that he wore has kind of emboldened a vocal minority of the fan base, really the staunch Joe Paterno supporters, and that's impossible to ignore. Terry Smith made it impossible to ignore when it comes to a certain faction of the fan base that is supporting Terry Smith, and then he is like, I don't blame him at all on this. I know this is a little bit of a tangent, but. Not a tangent, but a rant. I don't blame him at all, Terry Smith, for shooting his shot. Like, this is probably the only time in his career that he's ever going to have a shot at this level of a job. Not to mention it's his alma mater. Not to mention he was coached by and learned from Joe Paterno and obviously has a lot of love and respect for him. So, like, I don't blame him for doing what he did, whether it's what he was wearing or what he was saying after the game. But I don't think he is going to be Penn State's next head coach. And I think that's probably for the best. I just don't, I don't believe that, this can be or should be an emotional decision.
I tend to really agree with every point you made. Like, I don't think that you fired James Franklin just to go after Terry Smith. I think that keeping it in-house when you go up on the podium and say, we're going to swing big, we need yada, 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 big name coach. This isn't necessarily that, but just to play devil's advocate a little bit, I kind of went back through college football reference and looked at all of the Power 5 head coaches since 2000 who were an interim and then got the full-time job. And honestly, the success rate was quite a bit higher than I anticipated it being. I mean, you think about some of the names. I put it in a story on Penn Live Sunday after all of this went down. It's Brent Key at Georgia Tech is one of them. Demo Sweeney was. Clemson, who obviously won a couple of national championships. Mario Cristobal at Oregon, who's not there anymore, but is doing a nice job at Miami. Like, there are some big names here who did pretty well. I mean, Ed Orgeron won a national title in a similar situation at LSU. I'm not saying this is the same situation. I'm just playing devil's advocate here. And then just to further the devil's advocate part of this, like, Penn State's run to playing better football here. Yes, it's against a bad Michigan State team and a Nebraska team that isn't great, but was without its starting quarterback. But there are like tangible changes to the way that Penn State has played in these games that I think you give Terry Smith some credit for and say, wow, okay, maybe he can handle coaching staff in a better way than we would have expected for a guy who doesn't have any college football head coaching experience. I mean, the throwing the ball down the field, the actually realizing Katron Allen is your best player and giving him the ball 25 times a game, the simplifying the defense, getting young personnel onto the field, playing the guys that are your best guys no matter what. Those are things that Terry Smith has had his hands all over during this run. So yes, it is 2 wins against not very good teams. Even if they win this weekend, Rutgers isn't a very good team either. They have 6 Big Ten losses, just like Penn State. I am in agreement with everything you said. I do not think this ends with Terry Smith as the head coach, but I'm just playing devil's advocate because there are some factors to this that may look a little better with him as an option, especially with all the other big swings not necessarily being out there anymore. I'm just saying. I'm just being difficult, Johnny.
You're being difficult from, making a counterpoint, and then also the Wi-Fi situation, Max. You're just being difficult. No, I understand the adjustments thing, but I had people in my mentions, when I put the column out on Tuesday morning, and I had people in the mentions saying, like, James Franklin never made these adjustments. Like, James Franklin won 104 games at Penn State. Like, you mean to tell me, and his team's never played like Terry Smith's team is playing? You mean to tell me they never ran the ball, played hard defense, under James Franklin in 11 plus seasons? Like, I caution the adjustments end of it because it was obvious what was wrong with Penn State. It was obvious what was wrong with this team. We knew what was wrong with this team, 4 games into the year. So I don't think it's like rocket science to say, wow, Katron Allen is the best player on this team or best player on this offense. He should get the ball. And then you also have the interim coach bounce. It happens in soccer a lot where, because the managers are fired a lot in soccer and, over in the Premier League, especially. And whenever a new manager comes in, they call it the new manager bounce. Like, you get that initial like wave, that fresh idea, that fresh perspective, and just very clearly and quickly fixing the problems that were ailing the team previously. And obviously, like, he has this locker room right now, and he has been at Penn State forever. He's a Penn State lifer. Like, and it's not just the fans that want him, and that's another part of this that I didn't miss in the column, but I didn't fully touch on in my kind of opening remarks here, I guess, is that the players are behind him. My issue is, like, how many guys were honored on senior day? 30 plus, and you've got guys, Vengo Ioane is holding up a higher Terry Smith sign. Well, he's going to be off to the NFL. You've got Drew Aller, pointing at the sign. He's gone. Like, there's a lot of Nick Dawkins, who is a phenomenal spokesperson, really a representative of this program, and has been for a long time. He even acknowledged in this post-game interview, like, obviously there's a business side to this. There's like a side to this that's out of our control, basically. But, we want Terry. Well, Nick Dawkins isn't going to be there. Like, a lot of these players are going to be off to the NFL or running out of eligibility. There's also a lot of players who are going to leave Penn State regardless if Terry Smith is named the head coach or not. There's going to be guys that go to Virginia Tech and follow James Franklin, and there's going to be guys who just go elsewhere, right? Whether it's Florida guys going to the SEC, whatever. You're going to have an exodus of players, regardless of who you hire as the head coach. And so I caution that Pat Kraft doesn't let 18 to 22-year-olds kind of run the future of the program, when I know that Penn State, like every major powerhouse program, values their lettermen a lot. But in the present, these players are temporary cogs, right? They are temporary pieces of the program. They will be moving on, whether it's in, 2 weeks or 2 years. And this is a hire for the long play. It should be, at least, it should be with the long-term interests of the program in mind. And so that's why, and also the interim thing, I got some emails on that too. Cristobal, Dabo, those guys were young, kind of up and coming, coaches, assistants, or at least and Terry, and this is, again, he's had a phenomenal career. And there's a reason why he was the associate head coach on this team. There's a reason why these players are backing him. But, he's not like this up and coming assistant coach that other teams are going to want to hire if you don't promote him or keep him as your interim head coach. So yeah, I love Terry Smith. I love dealing with him. I've loved dealing with him over the years. And this is and if you read the column, I put it more clearly and kind of, precisely than maybe I have in this podcast. So, but this is not an anti-Terry thing. It's more of a pro, a pro, you need something else. You need something that will inspire confidence. You need something that will have the future in mind of this program. And it's really just a caution that we don't get too wrapped up in what happened over the last 2 weeks.
You're absolutely correct. With the point that this is a play for the future, I'm pretty sure Pat Kraft is thinking about his own future in all of this as well.
Yes.
If he doesn't get this hire right, he may not get the chance to make a second hire at Penn State, and that's an important thing to consider. So is he really going to stake his future on Terry Smith? I don't know. Again, I do want to apologize for any background noise or Wi-Fi issues happening in this podcast. We're doing what we have to here on the Blue White Breakdown. But Johnny, we said we were going to keep this snappy. All the Terry Smith talk, it's going to continue until the end of the season here. But let's get into our game predictions for the weekend against Rutgers. Look, bowl eligibility. Both these teams 5-6, 2-6 in the Big Ten. If they win, they're into a bowl game this weekend. As far as Penn State goes, I haven't checked on Rutgers, but Penn State at 5-7 is not going to get an invite to a bowl game. Their academic ratings are not good enough. That's just how it goes. They're 119th, I think, in the country, and you have to be so high up that list to get an invite at 5-7. Not happening. They have to win this weekend. But if they do, which there's a pretty decent chance of it, they're favored this weekend. They've just completely manhandled Rutgers ever since the Scarlet Knights joined the Big Ten. 32-2 in the all-time series. And Rutgers has not scored more than 10 points in a game since these two have been playing in Big Ten action. So let's get into it, Johnny. I'll quickly go through Joe Hermit and Bob Flounder's picks here. Joe Hermit says his players on the spot are the Rutgers run defense. Can they stop Katron Allen and Nick Singleton? I'm going to bet no, but we'll see. Don't be surprised if it's a long day for Rutgers quarterback Ethan Kaliak-Manis. Penn State pass rush has really been on a roll lately. Joe goes Penn State 35, Rutgers 13. Bob Flounders, he says Penn State's offensive line is on the spot this week. It's a confident group. He mentions again how all five showed up to a post-game interview. They gotta carry this Penn State team to a win this weekend if it's going to happen. Don't be surprised if the Penn State run game forces Rutgers defense to make some dicey decisions. I think that's fair, trying to undercut some routes. Bob goes Penn State 27, Rutgers 13. And then just to finish this thing out for myself, I'm going players on the spot for A.J. Harris, Darius Dixon, and the rest of the secondary. Look, Rutgers isn't a very good team, but they actually have an above-average passing offense. They have K.J. Duff is a really good wide receiver. Ethan Kaliak-Manis, though imperfect, is a veteran. He's played in a lot of Big Ten games. Interesting guy. But I'm not giving him too much credit. I don't be surprised if I'm going bold this week, Johnny. Penn State pitches its second shutout of the season. I'm going Penn State 34, Rutgers 0. I'm bought into this team. They look good.
Wow, that's hefty. Yeah, look, I do like Rutgers' passing offense, by the way. As an aside, like Ian Strong is a really good receiver, and I get that. At the same time, I also have Penn State winning this game. Getting right to it, Penn State 27, Rutgers 16. For me, the players on the spot is the Penn State offensive line. This front has been, more dominant of late, opening lanes for Katron Allen, establishing a physicality. Now they face the worst rushing defense in the Big Ten. Rutgers allows over 200 yards on the ground per game, which ranks 126th out of 136 FBS teams. 129th out of 136 FBS teams. Last week, Ohio State at 254 on the ground. I think the Penn State offensive line and Katron Allen, they can do the same in kind of establishing themselves and manhandling this game, from the jump. Don't be surprised if Ethan Grunkemeyer turns in another efficient day. Rutgers defense has allowed a 156.9 passer rating this season, worst in the Big Ten. Grunkemeyer is coming off a precise performance against Rutgers, 11 of 12, 181 yards. Wouldn't be surprised at all if Penn State follows pretty much the same formula that they used to beat up on Nebraska. And then, my prediction is that this team is going bowling. Like, I didn't think that would happen after James Franklin was fired, especially after they lost to Iowa and especially after they got hammered by Ohio State. But, this team has rallied. Give them credit for winning the last two games. And I think they make it 3 in a row and they get to a bowl game. Wherever that bowl game is, I don't know. It could be in Detroit, could be in New York. Hey, it could be the Pinstripe Bowl against Pitt. That would at least be a little bit, fun in terms of the side angles of all this. But yeah, I think this team finishes the year on a 3-game winning streak and salvages something from this lost season.
Johnny, how pissed would Pat Narduzzi be that he finally gets to play Penn State in a postseason game, but James Franklin is not there?
Well, I don't know, because I'll say this. He's going to have his opportunities against James Franklin in the ACC. He's playing him next year. He's already got that one circled on his 2026 calendar. They haven't announced what the actual date is. So he might just have the entire, September through November circled, being like, I'm playing James Franklin at some point, in this stretch. So he'll have his chances. He'll have a shot.
He will. Look, picking a shutout with that many Penn State points, I'm just being bold. I figure last game of a wash of a season, why not have some fun with it? I really don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, though, because Penn State's playing really well. Rutgers has lost 6 of its last 8, and their only wins are against Purdue, and I forget who the other one is off the top of my head, but not good football teams. This is just – I think it's going to be a bloodbath this weekend. Piscataway can be sleepy, especially on the weekend after Thanksgiving. So, I don't expect a whole lot from the Scarlet Knights this weekend. All right, I think that is
more than fair. More than fair.
I think that's going to do it for us here on this version of the Blue-White Breakdown. Again, apologies for any scuffed audio or video in this one. Hope it wasn't too bad. But we wanted to make sure we got an episode out for you on Thanksgiving Day. Hope everybody enjoys the holiday. Hope you're able to be with some family. If you're traveling, be safe. Appreciate you all tuning in. As always, make sure you're subscribing to the podcast. Make sure you're subscribing to PennLive.com and reading everything that we put out, because it's going to be a lot. This is going to be a sprint right after this weekend. Head coaching search, signing day, which that's a whole nother story that we will talk about at some point. But just stay tuned, because there's a lot going on.